Yo, what is up guys, and welcome to another Honkai Star Rail video. So, she's finally here! Silverwolf, the new limited 5-star character that everyone is talking about. Actually, her banner has already been out for a couple of days, so this has given me some time to analyze, research, and test Silverwolf's kit. Of course, this testing was done with other players' Silverwolves, as I have not yet summoned for Silverwolf herself. And even if I did, I would not have the resources available to instantly build her to a optimal standard. Tries and free-to-play struggles. Regardless, in today's pull or skip video, I will be going over Silverwolf's kit, laying out her pros and cons, as well as offering you all some reasons to consider pulling for Silverwolf or skipping her. And here's the usual disclaimer of please make your own informed decision on whether or not you should pull or skip for Silverwolf. Okay, let's get started. For her basic attack, deals quantum damage equal to a percentage of Silverwolf's attack to a single enemy. They changed it from the closed beta description. It used to have the base chance to apply one of her bugs listed on her basic attack description. Oh well, regardless, still just a standard basic attack. Oh boy, here we go, huge wall of text. Okay, so this is her skill. There is a percentage base chance to add one weakness of an on-ally field's type to the target enemy. This also reduces the enemy's damage resist to that weakness type by 20% for 2 turns. If the enemy already has that type weakness, the effect of damage resist reduction to that weakness type will not be triggered. Each enemy can only have one weakness implanted by Silverwolf. When Silverwolf implants another weakness to the target, only the most recent implanted weakness will be kept. In addition, there is a 100% base chance to reduce the all-type resist of the enemy further by a percentage for 2 turns. And last, it's going to deal quantum damage equal to a percentage of Silverwolf's attack to the enemy. Okay, so anyone still with me after that skill description? Let me give you guys some examples and elaborate further to resolve all this confusion. Okay, so for the first example, I'm going to try to show an example of a full quantum team, which technically is impossible at the moment because we only have 3 quantum characters if you include Silverwolf. So for now, just pretend my Qingtre is Silverwolf and Bailu and March 7th are 2 random quantum characters that are introduced in the future that fit the role of a healer and tank. With this mono quantum team, you have a 100% guaranteed chance to apply the quantum weakness on the opponent if they aren't already weak to the quantum element. Alright, here's a second example. We have Bailu, Tingyang, Qingtre, just pretend Qingtre Silverwolf, and Zile. In this type of team, we have 2 elements, lightning and quantum. In this case, you'll have a 50-50% chance to implant each elemental weakness. For this example team, we have 3 different types of elements, so the chances to apply each element will be 33.3%. And finally, of course, if we replace Zile with a different element DPS, the odds of applying each element will be 25%. Now, I would like to point out that you can actually manipulate the weakness implanted based on what the enemy is already weak to. So for example, if the enemy is already weak to lightning, and Silverwolf uses her skill against that enemy, there will be a 100% chance that Silverwolf will implant the quantum weakness rather than lightning. Before her release, there was a lot of confusion and concern on how her skill worked in this particular scenario, but since then, I myself, as well as many other content creators, have already done testing and proven this result. Alright, hopefully that explanation helped you guys out and didn't create more questions than answers. Alright, moving on to her ultimate, which cost 110 energy. There's a percentage-based chance to decrease the target enemy's defense by a certain percentage for 3 turns, and at the same time deals quantum damage equal to a percentage of Silverwolf's attack to the target enemy. I'd like to mention that the defense shred is applied before the damage on her ultimate goes through. Same thing applies to her skill as mentioned before. This makes her damage capabilities much stronger than most of us expected. When paired with a moderate energy cost, it's overall a great solid single target ult. And for her talent, Silverwolf can create 3 types of bugs. Reduce attack by a percentage, reduce defense by a percentage, and reduce speed by a percentage. Every time Silverwolf attacks, she has a percentage base chance to implant a random bug that lasts for 3 turns in the target enemy. This is the part of Silverwolf's kit that has the most RNG involved. A 1 in 3 chance to apply any of the 3 bugs, and the base chance to apply these bugs are low when compared to other debuff base chances. However, the good news is that the bugs already applied to the enemy will not be factored in the next time Silverwolf tries to implant another bug. So for example, if Silverwolf applies the attack reduction buff after she uses her basic attack, the next time she either uses her basic attack or skill, she will have a chance to apply either the defense reduction buff or the speed reduction buff. This means that she won't risk applying a bug that's already applied. Lastly, I would like to note that Silver Wolf can implant a bug every time she attacks. So that means her basic, skill, ultimate, and even her technique, which I will be covering next, can apply one of these bugs. Truly an amazing talent that synergizes with her entire kit. And finally, we get to her technique. Immediately attacks the enemy after entering battle, deals quantum damage equal to 80% of Silver Wolf's attack to all enemies, and ignores weakness types and reduces toughness from all enemies. Enemies with their weakness broken in this way will trigger the quantum weakness break effect. As mentioned before, this technique has a chance to apply one of her bugs, and is her only form of AoE damage. The fact that she is able to reduce the toughness of all enemies regardless of their weakness makes this technique extremely powerful, and it synergizes really well with one of her major traces, which I will be discussing next. Alright, starting off with her first major trace. Bug's duration is extended for 1 turn. Every time an enemy is inflicted with weakness break, Silver Wolf has a 65% base chance of implanting a random bug in the enemy. So as mentioned before, if Silver Wolf weakness breaks enemies with her technique at the start of the battle, she has a chance to apply one of her bugs to those who are weakness broken. This also applies to enemies weakness broken by allies, by the way. On top of that, 4-turn bugs are nice. This pretty much means that enemy will almost always have all 3 bugs applied on them. A really strong first major trace to start things off. Okay, moving on to her second major trace. The duration of the weakness implanted by Silver Wolf's skill increases by 1 turn. This is a very important major trace. This makes it so that Silver Wolf is a much more skill point friendly character. This is because she now doesn't need to use her skill as often to implant a weakness on the enemy. Very important trace that everyone should be investing into. And finally, we get to her third major trace. If there are 3 or more debuffs affecting the enemy when the skill is used, then the skill decreases the enemy's all-type resistance by an additional 3%. It should be pretty easy to apply 3 bugs on the enemy, with the help of her technique and first major trace. However, when compared to her other 2 major traces, this one seems a bit lackluster in comparison. Still a good major trace. All-type damage resist reduction, no matter how small it is always appreciated. Overall, all 3 of Silver Wolf's major traces are of great value and are all worth investing into. Alright, as usual for these limited 5 stars, I tend to ignore or briefly mention their eidolons. Because odds are, if you are interested in a character's eidolons, then you are probably going to pull for them regardless, which kinda defeats the purpose of this video. All you guys need to know is that her eidolons are really strong, especially her eidolon 6, which can apparently allow her to deal more damage than a Zile also at eidolon 6. Yeah, kinda ridiculous. Her eidolon 1 and 2 are worth considering for all you small to moderate spenders out there. The potential 35 energy regeneration on her eidolon 1 allows Silver Wolf the option to not use a energy regeneration link rope, which in turn boosts her overall damage capabilities. And her eidolon 2 makes it so that you no longer have to run effect hit rate on her chest piece, if you have enough of it on your substats and light cone. Free to play might even want to consider pulling her for her eidolon 1 on her rerun banner if the rate up 4 stars and your stellar jade count align up properly. Alright, now let's go over her pros and cons. Starting off with the pros. Silver Wolf is of the rare quantum element. Currently we only have 3 quantum element characters, including Silver Wolf herself. And I believe that the quantum element is definitely one of the stronger element types, as it does provide both control and damaging capabilities for the characters. And the quantum element really does synergize well with the nihility path, because if you break an enemy with the quantum weakness break effect, it actually pushes the enemy back in turn order, which in turn allows the debuffs to be extended even longer than they normally would. And that is obviously going to be a huge benefit for nihility characters such as Silver Wolf. Which brings me to her next pro. She has strong break potential, thanks to her technique and when paired with her weakness implanting on her skill. Not only does she herself have decent break potential, she also allows your teammates to break the opponent's weakness bar more often, thanks to her weakness implanting mechanic. For her next pro, she is both a offensive and defensive support. This is because the debuffs she applies have both offensive and defensive capabilities. She has an attack and speed reduction for defensive support, and then she has defense shred along with resist reduction for offensive support. All in all, just great utility overall, and she is just a great addition to any team that requires these offensive and defensive debuffs. Next, she can be a skill point generator when used properly. Since the weakness implanting on her skill lasts for 3 turns, she'll be using her basic attack in between those turns, which will allow her to generate enough skill points for your carry. Obviously, if you don't put Silverwolf in the correct team against the correct enemy, you will be juggling and planting different weakness types on the enemy, and therefore this can actually result in a skill point deficit. But if you play your cards right, she overall should be a net positive in terms of skill points. And for her last pro, she is future-proof for the most part. Thanks to her unique skill of being able to implant weaknesses on the opponent, I see her being used in many different future team comps for a very long time. If there ever does come a character that power creeps or replaces Silverwolf, then at that point Hoyoverse has probably already run out of ideas for character kits, and that would be very concerning. Okay, now let's move on to her cons. Starting off with her first con, which is she can be difficult to slot into teams currently. Since the game has only been out for a little over a month, we do not have a wide variety of characters of a certain element. Like for example, we only have 3 quantum characters as of right now, so it's impossible to build a mono quantum team. Heck, we only have 1 imaginary character until Luocha and Yukong are released later on in this patch. So this overall makes it very difficult to build Silverwolf around certain teams, especially mono type. Next, she's going to need high investment in both her skills and her gear. A lot of the base chances for her debuffs are extremely low, especially on her talent, until you get them to higher levels. That in turn also means she's going to need a lot of effect hit rate. And in order to get that effect hit rate, you're going to probably have to invest a lot into her light cones, her relics, as well as getting the correct substats on her relics as well. So yeah, for a support character, Silverwolf definitely needs quite a bit of investment when compared to other characters like Pella and Ting Young. Moving on to her next con, she has a rather RNG based kit. Her bugs that she implants are RNG based, as well as the weakness implanted on her skill, although you can manipulate it by running a mono team or using her against certain enemies. The RNG in her kit is not nearly as bad as what we thought it was before, however there's still a little bit of RNG involved when it comes down to implanting her bugs, as well as some of the low base chances on applying her debuffs on her skills. And finally, for her last con, she is mostly single target. The only part of her kit that isn't single target is her technique, which happens to be a really strong part of her kit. Even with that, she is probably not the most optimal character to bring into a fight with multiple enemies. She is more suited for single target boss fights, or with fights that don't require you to prioritize the weaker trash mobs. Alright, now we get into the most anticipated part of this video. Should you pull or skip Silverwolf? I'm going to start off with some reasons why you should consider pulling for Silverwolf. The first reason why you should consider pulling for Silverwolf is if you already have Bailu and want or need quantum coverage and don't want to use Qingque for whatever reason. Having at least 1 quantum character built up is not only going to help you out in the long run, but it's also going to allow your teams to have more coverage. The next reason to consider is if you plan on making a future mono quantum team. Currently, we don't have enough to make a full team, so it's worth considering skipping Silverwolf's initial banner if you don't have enough Stellar Jade. Instead, you can pull on her rerun banner later on when more quantum element characters are introduced. Of course, this is factoring in if you don't have enough Stellar Jade to full pity Silverwolf. If you currently have enough to pull for Silverwolf, I would highly recommend you guys go ahead and pull for her. The next consideration is if you want Silverwolf herself and are currently using at least 2 of the 3 rate up 4 stars on her banner. Those rate up 4 stars being Dan Heng, Asta, and Serval. Like for example, if you guys are using Asta and Serval, then it's worth considering pulling on this banner for both their Eidolons as well as Silverwolf. And for the last thing to consider is if you like the character. If you like Silverwolf's design and her playstyle, then go ahead and pull for her. Alright, now we're going to go into the reasons why you might want to consider skipping Silverwolf. And for the first and obvious reason, it would be if you're dead broke. If you spent all your Stellar Jades on the Zile and Jingyuan banner, and you don't have any summons available for Silverwolf. Then please, don't gamble your Stellar Jades, just wait for her rerun if you want her. The second reason why you might want to consider skipping her banner is if you don't have Bailu and need that second healer for the Memory of Chaos. Luocha, which is the next limited 5-star, is the better short-term solution, and if you want, you can just consider pulling Silverwolf later on when she returns on her rerun banner. And for the final reason why you might want to consider skipping her banner, it would be if you don't have Zile and or are not interested in building a mono quantum team featuring Qingque or whatever future quantum DPS that is later introduced. Okay guys, well that's going to be it for this Honkai Star Rail video. Let me know in the comments below if you guys plan on pulling for Silverwolf. Feel free to let me know if you have anything to add or if you have any questions about Silverwolf. And of course, if you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, or join if you wish to support my channel even further. But other than that, I'll see you guys in the next Honkai Star Rail video. Peace.